Today I'm going to show you how to frame a super strong and cheap shed that's much better than a shed that you could buy in the local garden centre for twice the money. I mean, you've only got to look at this 2x2 framework and very expensive price for a pretty small shed, and all of a sudden building one yourself becomes a very attractive option. The best bit, by the end of this video you'll have all learned to frame one of these yourself and save yourself a load of money. Can I let go now? So we've got a nice square base to work with, and the first job is to build that back wall. And for all our framing today, we're using 4x2 treated timber, really good quality C24 timber. And we're going to start by cutting the length of this back wall on our bottom plate. That's the plate that attaches to the bit of timber base here, and our top plate, which means the top of the wall that runs along the top. So we'll cut them to length, which is 2.8 meters. Now I'm going to make this nice and simple, and I'll show you some techniques that you can use to do this on your own if you have to. There is two of us, which does make it easier, but I'll show you an easy way of handling it. So we're going to build these walls in sections on the floor, and then we're going to stand them up in place. Now here in the UK you need to be mindful of your height. Because we're close to the fence there, we need to be coming in at a total height of 2.5 meters above the ground. Now I've taken into account the base because that's above the ground. I've taken into account the roof, which is going to be low pitch, and the stud work, and that leaves us with a measurement between the top and bottom stud that we need to create the uprights to, and that measurement is 2270. So let's cut some timber. And because it's the UK, it's raining. We can't get a break. Yesterday was what, 34 degrees? 34. And now it's pouring down the rain. Just can't win it, can you? So we've got the top plate, bottom plate, and both sides laid on the floor. And if you imagine building it on the floor like this means we can just pick the wall up and it will end up in place. You don't want to make this miles away. You want to make it where you want to stand it up, because depending on how big your shed is, it could be quite heavy. And what we're going to do now is we're going to fix those two studs, so the top plate and bottom plate with the two sides. We'll fix them in. Now remember, the aim of this whole video is to come well in under that shed price that you see from the shop, that pre-built shed. And I'm going to be using a nailer to do my framing, but I appreciate they're expensive. A lot of you probably won't have one, so it's fine to use an impact driver and some, I think these are 80mm screws, and that would be plenty sufficient for a DIY shed at home. I'm only using the nailer because I've got one. So what you're going to do is you're going to line your two bits of timber up, of course, to the size of this base, because when it stands up it's the same size. We're building edge to edge, and then we're going to pop some screws through that timber to bring these two bits of timber together. These are Fisher Powerfast screws, so they don't split the ends of the timber. They're really good screws, so we're going to use these. So all four corners are now fixed together, and we want an upright every 400mm. That's our first wall built. We're now going to stand it up, and I'm going to show you how we stand it up on our own. There's a little trick to doing that. Now bear in mind, if you're going to board this, so you're going to have exterior OSB that you then batten and put your cladding on afterwards, which is a totally different technique, by the way. And if you want to do that and you're building a garden room, that would be the way to go. This is not a garden room, this is a shed. Very important to remember that. Two very different builds. I'm not going to be boarding the outside of this. We're going to clad straight to it, like that shed that we see in the shop where the cladding is straight onto the framework. We're not going to insulate it, we're not going to plasterboard it inside. It's just a shed. And to stop the wall racking, I'll explain a little bit more about this in a little while. You've either got to do one or two things. You've got to board it, which will stop it racking, or you've got to put horizontal braces across on the inside, or you could board the inside if you want to. There has to be a way of keeping it square. So what we've done to stand it up, we've screwed some rough offcuts just on here. They're just free, they're laying on the ground. You can see what I mean. It's just a little swing arm. So as we lift this, look what happens to them bits of timber. They start to follow us, and they end up, just let that go, being able to hold the wall for you. We can screw into the sides of them to hold that wall upright, and that's the easiest way to do it on your own, but it's also easier with two people because it frees one man's hands up to go and get a level, which is what I'm going to do now, to plumb this wall up. So at the moment the wall's leaning towards me. What I'm going to do is just push that a little more, and then when I let it go, it'll stay there because them arms have followed me and they've dug into the ground. So I know this wall's plumb. Now We can fix the arms to the side. It's a little difficult for us because we ain't got a lot of room to move, and we can fix it down to the timber in this base. 80mm power fast screw, one for every stud. Use screws instead of nails because you want to pull the bottom plate down to the timber base and pop those through at a very slight angle because it catches the timber rather than just the OSB. Of course, there's a timber frame in this base. This base will never rot, by the way. There's a video linked in the description so that you can watch how to build a timber base that's on concrete piers that will never ever rot away. So give that a watch as well. So that back wall is now complete, and we're going to leave these temporary timbers in for now. Of course, they hold the wall plumb so it doesn't lean. That'll help us to join the corners together when we build the two side walls. Now this side wall isn't going to have a window in, so next stage you build your two sides. This one isn't going to have a window. It's just going to be the same as that, minus the bottom plates for the back wall and front wall, so the thicknesses of those, so it'll be a little bit shorter. And this side is going to have a window in, a high level window. We've got an old window that Chris behind the camera there has been saving for how many years? 20 years. So it's an old window, but it's a double glazed window. It'll just let a little bit of light in, and it saves us a little bit of money because we haven't got to buy or even build a window. You can build a window, which will save you money, but we might as well use it up. So this one's going to have a window in. We'll show you how to frame around a window because it's a little bit different. And then as we work our way this way, of course, we'll show you how we do the door and the front wall as well. This side wall needs to be short by 2 widths for the front wall and back wall. So all I'm going to do is going to place this where my front wall would be, make a little mark there, and measure between the two. My little tip for you doing a build like this where your walls are all the same height, different if you've got a pitch on the roof that you're building into your walls. This piece of timber here, you'll notice it has a P on it. It's upside down so it actually looks like a D, but that is our pattern piece of timber, and all we do is we lay that on top of every single upright, mark it, it's all the way down this end, and then we know that we can never cut the uprights the wrong height. So just like that first wall, we cut all our timbers, place them all in at 400mm, and then I nail them all home with the nail gun. So you can knock these walls together pretty quick. Chris is just screwing another one of these arms on there, and what you'll see is as we stand this wall up, our braces, temporary braces, come in again because this wall will stand up and lay flat against that, and we can screw it to it. It'll hold it in place for us whilst we build the rest of this shed. All we want to do is just make sure this corner's plumb on both sides, and then we can screw through this stud into this stud behind here, and that will make sure that corner is perfectly plumb. 80mm screws again, straight through into the stud behind. I'll just do that all the way up this corner. It's taken us an hour and 20 minutes to get 2 walls up. So the same process for this side wall, except this side wall has a window in it. So we've got our little window here. I'm just going to put it high up just to let light in really, and I've made some little marks on 3 of these studs where I want the bottom of that window to sit. So once I've marked where that window goes, I find it a lot easier to actually cut out the studs afterwards and then put my timber around the edge of where the window's going to go. Now it's important that we double up these timbers. Anywhere where there's a door or a window, just double up the timbers to give it that little bit more strength all the way around the window. Give us a window, final check. I'd hate to get the wall up and then have to adjust it, so let's make sure we get this right. It's upside down, is it? No, no, it's the right way around. Yes, look at that.
Perfect.
Perfect, that is 3mm spacer all round, and that'll be spot on. Right, we'll stand this one up against that temporary bracer we put in earlier. Now, because we've got no sheeting on this wall, like I said, it's a shed, not a garden room. We don't need OSB on the outside. If we do that, we then have to batten it to clad it, increases our costs. So I know this timber's not necessarily completely upright, but this one is. And what we can see, you can't see it on the camera, is that this is racked. So look, you see that? I can move this whole back wall. So it's come out a square, it's racked over. Now, if you have sheets on there, it stops that. We need to create a brace. Of course, the brace is going to sit on the surface on the inside. So you can see what we've done. We just cut that nicely into that corner, just so that corner in theory bears the weight. And then you can see that brace will just run up there and we'll just cut it off in line with the roof. It's lunchtime, the sun's out at last. It's only taken us a morning to do all three of those walls, and now we're going to do this big front wall, the last bit of the wall framing. If you're not subscribed already, we've got 2 more videos to come on this shed build. We've got an apex roof build and we've got the cladding as well. I'm going to do guides on both of those aspects of building this shed, and we need to come in within that £2 grand. So if you're not subscribed, make sure you do, because you don't want to miss them, and give the video a like. That way it can reach more people and help more people. So let's get a front wall built. Now this front wall here is actually leaning over because there's nothing to support it at the moment, and this temporary brace is now in the way. So to get this wall plumb and to make sure the whole thing is square, what I'm going to do now is put a piece of timber from top plate to top plate across the front there, make sure the walls are plumb, and then it won't be able to move. Now this week on Ultimate Tool Competitions, one of you lucky winners is going to win this huge 12-piece Makita kit. The kit is full of Makita's most popular 18-volt tools, 4 5-amp-hour batteries, and a storage system to keep it all in. We've kitted out hundreds of people, we kit people out every week, and this week there is even a completely free Milwaukee giveaway on there as well. So make sure you head to the link in the description down below, grab your tickets, and we'll see you on the next live draw. First step, we need to know how big the door's going to be, because we need to cut that opening, and we need that in our mind before we build that front door. This is a used door that I'm using. You can grab one of these really cheap off Facebook Marketplace, or follow my link in the description where I built a gate. You can use that same principle to build a really solid shed door. So I'll pop a little card up on the screen and a link in the description, and you can learn to build your own door nice and cheap, or find a cheap one on Facebook Marketplace. So I'm going to take a measurement of this door. I want the door in the center of this front wall, so I've marked the center point on the floor here. So that's my center. And then the door's 1270 wide, 635 one way, 635 the other way. And then I know exactly where my door sits in this opening, and I'll mark that on the floor. Now we need to build this front wall in 3 sections. We're going to build the frame that our door sits in, and we're going to build the 2 cheeks either side of it. So that's 3 separate sections, and we do the working out on the floor that makes that easier. So we know our opening needs to be where those 2 blank marks are. I'm not sure if you can see them, but I've got a mark there and a mark there. That's the actual door itself. And now we need to work out our frame sizes. So we know this mark is the edge of our door. Now we need to see the different widths of timber to create the frame for the door, and then that'll tell us the size that we need running up to this wall here. So grab an offcut of stud, make a little pencil mark for 1, make a little pencil mark for 2. So that's 2 widths of our 4x2, and this piece here is our trimmer. Remember that for later. So that creates our door frame there, and our king stud, which bears the weight between the bottom plate and the top plate. This here is our overall size of our framework that goes on this middle section that our door screws into. Now we need to take a measurement between the edge of the king stud and the edge of our base here. And with that measurement, I then build 2 small sections of wall for either side of the door in exactly the same way as I did before. I then bring those in place, and they should finish on that first line where the king stud starts. I clamp it in place, screw it to the floor, and once plumb, I screw it to my adjoining wall. So that is both cheeks in, and that just leaves us our doorway to build. Now our door, to keep the step height down, is going to go straight onto the OSB, so we don't need to put a stud in the bottom here. We're just going to have a king stud and a trimmer each side of the door. So essentially there'll be 3 studs either side of the door, but you just want to make sure you've got them doubled up, and I'll show you why that is when we build it. And a header will go at the top as well. I'll show you how I build all this up to create some good strength around that door. Now normally I'd leave my bottom plate in, but I wasn't thinking straight, and I'll leave my mistakes in for you so you don't make them. We could have just made this a little bit longer so it came to here to support the 2 studs, because now I just got to put a little bit of timber in there. Granted, it's going to be cladded. You're never going to see all this anyway because our cladding's going to come down past it, but really we could have saved ourselves a little bit of work, and it just would have been neater if we'd have made this bit a little bit longer. Now our full length king stud goes in up against the common stud of our cheek here. We're going to fix that one in place. The next and incredibly vital step is you get the other half to make you a nice iced latte. Now our door height becomes important because we need to put a trimmer in to bear the weight of our header. It's only a small header on this one because there's no weight above it really. So what we need to do is cut this next stud to the size of our door plus 10 mil. That'll give us a 10 mil gap around the door. You'll always make your opening 10 mil bigger than your frame. So because my door height is 2180, what I'm going to do is make the trimmer 2190 minus the thickness of that bottom plate there. So our trimmer's cut, that goes up against our king stud, and you can see it's a little bit shorter because it's going to have the header on top. And of course everything you do that side, you do this side. Now if you're new to framing, use screws for the complex bits, because if you make a mistake and you use the nail gun, I've actually used the nail gun that side, but if you make a mistake and use the nail gun, it's going to be a nightmare to undo your mistakes. Now we can just make a header to fit on top of the 2 trimmers. That piece of timber just sits and fixes on top of the trimmers. Now we need to cut a bit of timber for our top plate. Now whilst we've created the perfect door opening, at the minute this header's not really strong enough. So we need to add what I'd call noggins. What the technical term is, I think it's cripple studs. And all these are small bits of timber that sit nice and tight between the top plate and the top of the header to make the whole thing that little bit stronger. So our front wall's built. Now remember, the whole idea of this is to save money, and so far the base for this cost me 400 quid, but remember it's on concrete piers, links in the description, and the timber that we've used today, and this has only taken us 6 hours to build this whole thing, the timber this cost me today was 400 quid as well. So what you see here, including all the base, is £800 worth. Now we've got a small apex roof to build, and we've got some cladding to go on. So I'm pretty confident we can do this within 2 grand. But there is one more thing we need to do to get these walls complete before we end this video. You guessed it, noggins halfway up the wall to strengthen all these studs. All I do is I hold these in the gap because they'll all be slightly different, make a little mark, cut them on the saw, and then we'll nail them in. I've fixed the Hupar laser level to the wall. I'll fix one stud above the mark there. So one will go there, one will go down here, and then we can get to the backs of them. You can do them all in line. There's no real point. We can use the nail gun and just go in at an angle, and that will be a much easier way of doing it. And once your noggins are in, you've got a super strong build, much stronger than that shed we saw in the garden centre. And it took us less than a day. So save yourself some money, build one of these yourself, check out one of these videos if you want to learn more, and I'll see you in the next one.